What is going on, everyone? My name is Firebrand and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to ranking every assault rifle in COD history, worst to best part 1. Part 2 is up in the right corner. I'm going to probably react to part 3 as well, and so this is going to just be a one huge thing of reacting to, you know, every AR ranking in COD history. One thing I do want to get in before this video starts, if you can hear construction outside, I am sorry. There's a water line construction going on across the street, so if you hear that, I'm sorry. Can't do anything about that, but let's get right into this.
I promised you a long time ago this would eventually happen, and we have arrived. This is a big one, everybody. Assault rifles are the most popular weapon type in COD history, and this is the most requested ranking list.
Also, it's one of my reaction videos. Expect that pause button to be hit a lot.
We've ever done, and the most put off, because let's be real, there's 127 assault rifles, but
I figured there'd be more than that.
It is time. We are going to start the journey of ranking every single assault rifle, 127 of them in COD history, from worst to best. Now, before anyone says anything, there aren't going to be very many World War II era guns on this list.
Makes
because
sense.
Most of those technically aren't assault rifles. After all, it was the 40s and that kind of weapon.
STGs.
So you let me know what
STG 44 would be one of them.
Drop a like,
the only one
please,
I could
guys.
think of, actually.
Show some love. Turn on those notifications. Make sure you're subscribed or following the...
The only World War II AR I can actually see being on this list is the STG 44. Maybe like some experimental AR thing from like late war period, from like World War II something. But that's about all I can see being in this list from, you know, World War II era games.
The page. This will be a 2, 3, or 4-part series because
Jesus.
This is the biggest ranking video we have ever done. So let's kick this off. At 127,
really?
dead last in COD history,
I love this thing, man.
The COD 4 M14. This is one of the worst semi-auto guns in the entire franchise. Let's be real. It was awkward. Yes, it could kill in 2 bullets, basically no matter what, but the handling, it was bad. Aside from the god-awful iron sights, it had some really high recoil. It made hitting your second...
On Modern Warfare Remastered, this thing was a bit better, but oh my god, I hate those sights. The sights, I knew I wanted to get it to the red dot sight because I knew how good it could be, but Jesus Christ, oh my god, getting it to those, just the kills for the red dot were horrible. God, I don't know why I did that still. I barely used it after I got the red dot. But love the gun, it sucks though.
Second shot, super difficult to do. Plus, when you put the M14 next to the G3,
yeah. Did not mean to hit pause right there.
There was no reason to use it.
Yeah, no,
ever.
G3 is...
The G3 was better in every single way. The M14, it sucked. It's dead last. Before we move on,
yeah,
guys,
the G3 was horrible.
Anything in the item shop for...
I'm gonna mute this real quick. Yeah, the G3 was pretty much in every way better than the M14, except the firing sound. I do prefer the M14 firing sound, which I know really doesn't matter in, you know, COD, but I do prefer the M14 firing sound to the G3. G3 just has always sounded weird to me.
Great. At number 126, the Modern Warfare 3 M16 A4. Now, much like the M4 in this game, it had been heavily nerfed and it turned into a starter weapon.
I love the M4.
It was viable, I guess, but also designed to be way weaker than everything else, so
makes sense.
You would have motivation to grind and keep leveling up. The
Which
Modern Warfare 3 M16 was slow. It was bouncy. It was unreliable. One burst kills weren't very common as an occurrence with the gun, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the gun. It was entirely outclassed by the other burst weapon in the game, which we'll talk about later. It was just
the Type 95,
an unimpressive gun all
I still
the way
didn't like that
around.
one either.
At number 125, the Advanced Warfare MK14. Now, the MK14 is usually a
There was a variant of this that had a target finder or whatever it was called on it, the little the highlighting scope. I can't think of what it was called off the top of my head, but it was horrible. I think you got a targeting scope and like -2 mobility for the entire variant. It was the Obituary. That's what it was. The Obituary. God, that thing was horrible. I pulled that out of a supply drop. I'm like, okay, sweet, this looks kind of cool. It has a low scope on it with -2 mobility. I don't even know what mobility is for, but I'll try it. Yeah, no, was not the best idea could have had. Yeah, horrible. Hated this thing. The gun itself, the other variants were actually pretty good, but God, that Obituary variant just sucked. There was a version of this, I think. I'm about to unpause here in a second. There was an insanely overpowered version of this. I don't remember what it was called. I think it was an elite variant. I don't remember what it was called, but it was insanely overpowered.
Very high damage rifle, but in a W, Sledgehammer decided to go against the grain for some reason. I don't know why. It hits for a pathetic 33 base damage, making it a 4-shot kill by default. Now, if you hit a headshot, the damage can jump up to 70.
It did have a really high fire cap,
more of
though.
a precision weapon than an assault
You
rifle.
could
If you
spam
weren't
this
hitting
thing.
constant headshots in a game where everybody's obviously jumping to the moon, the MK14 was awful. I mean, it's easily one of the worst semi-auto rifles in COD history. And understand, we are ranking from the worst to the best, and we are only going to go off their current state. We are not going off their launch state. We are going off their current status.
I don't think it was ever nerfed either.
Number 124.
I disagree with this one.
The Modern Warfare 2019 Odin. Now, I want to like the Odin. I like the name. I know you probably do too, but it's just not good for standard multiplayer. We are also going off multiplayer, not Warzone, okay? Extremely slow firing gun with very high damage, but
Any EFT players out there that have actually used the Odin, or Ash 12 technically I think is what it's called, will know how insanely high of a fire rate this thing has in EFT, and if that was in Modern Warfare, that would be insanely broken. But I kind of disagree with this. I wouldn't put it this low down. I actually like the Odin. If you had a speed build for it, it was really good, actually, or at least decent. Wasn't the worst, but it was decent.
But the handling was so bad, and with how fast Modern Warfare can play sometimes, the Odin is a liability more
The
than
handling was
anything.
what killed this
Remember,
thing.
we're only talking about standard multiplayer in this video, not Warzone. In regular Modern Warfare multiplayer,
No, this thing
the Odin was
sucked.
awful.
This thing was worse than Warzone.
At
What are you talking
number
about?
123 today.
I forgot this thing
The
existed.
Advanced Warfare AE4. Released as part of the Havoc DLC pack, it was an energy assault rifle that was very consistent with its damage. It dealt 34 base up close and then decreased down by only 4 points to an even 30. That's pretty good.
Y'all remember when you could buy DLC weapons like by themselves in like the Ghost and Advanced Warfare days? I bought the Maverick, the Ripper, and the Maverick A2 like all separately from the DLC. I never owned any Ghost DLC, but those DLCs I owned. I owned the guns, and the AE4 I think was glitched for me. I couldn't use the standard variant. I had like a common or enlisted or something like that variant. That I could only use the common variant that I had. I couldn't. This thing I'm still pretty sure to this day this thing is glitched out for me. Almost 7 years later, probably still glitched out for me. But not the AE4 is shredded if you get hit your shots with it. But yeah, no. And it sounds really cool too.
But it fired at 500 rounds per minute. And since it was an energy weapon, it had no cover penetration at all. So yes, it was strong. And yes, it was accurate. But the super low fire rate, well, and the lack of cover penetration, it killed it. I barely remember seeing anybody use it after the coolness factor wore off.
I used it a few times, but after that I
At number
didn't use it that much.
126. No, 122. Sorry.
Yeah, this thing sucked.
The
This
Advanced
thing was
Warfare
horrible.
M16. Lots of Advanced Warfare guns on this lower end. Easily one of the worst rifles in COD history. It was awkward. It was inconsistent. It got dumped in a game where burst weapons had to be melt machines or else they weren't viable. I mean, when people are bunny jumping everywhere, a burst weapon isn't going to be able to keep up with the full auto
God, this
unless
thing
it has some
sucked.
ridiculous range, which the M16 did not. Plus, these are potentially the worst iron sights in all of Call of Duty, even after the buffs. I mean, it was bad, and I have no problem putting it this far down the list.
Let me see if I can actually pull up a picture of Advanced Warfare M16 iron sights. Let me see if I can actually pull up a picture of these iron sights, because these things were horrible. Nope. Are they not going to be on here? I'm going to have to go to the COD wiki. I really don't want to, but there they are. That is... Let me... Can I enlarge that? I don't think I can. Imagine those, but like on like 80% of your screen. I pulled this out of supply drop. I don't know how long ago. One of the worst openings I had in my life. God, I hated the M16. The M16 in Advanced Warfare, I think it was like a 2-burst minimum kill. No, that thing was horrible. Bad sights and bad gun.
The Black Ops 3 KVK 99.
Better have a good reason for this one.
It was a remake of the fan favorite AN94, and I'll tell you right now, they didn't knock it out of the park. Black Ops 3 version got a hefty damage nerf, and the fire rate feels slower than it should have. I mean, it has got to be one of the most underwhelming DLC weapons ever, and one of the most underwhelming
I had this and I liked
remakes. I mean, how do you go from the Black Ops 2 AN94 to this thing? It was not a success. At number 120 today, the Advanced Warfare M1 Grand. It's almost identical to the MK14, but with one minor change to the damage multipliers. This thing only deals 34 base damage, but if you hit the upper torso, you can get a headshot bonus, which made it a lot easier to get 2-shot kills. However, That comes
That
with
explains
the
a
cost
lot.
of lower ammo capacity. There's only 8 rounds in this thing.
Hold on. Let's take a moment away from this video. Do y'all see this? This is why we shouldn't have riot shields in COD. At least in my opinion. Look at this.
Ever.
Look at that.
That
Look at that disgusting
The
thing right
cost
there.
of lower ammo capacity. There's only 8 rounds in this thing, and you
I hate
cannot
riot
do
shields.
anything to increase that number. It was a lot better than the MK14, but it had enough drawbacks, and if you're not aiming high, it was just another hit marker machine. Hence, why it's at number 120 today.
That, and I don't think you could put an extended mag on this thing. So you had 8 shots, and in Advanced Warfare, when everyone was pretty much like 30, 40 feet in the air, like at all times. Yeah, no, this was not. It was a really cool gun, and I still think they were trying to tease COD World War II with the World War II weapons they dropped in Advanced Warfare. But it was a really cool gun, but it just was not good in Advanced Warfare, which is, you know, the case for like 90% of the guns in that game.
At number 119, the Advanced Warfare Lever Action. Now, this was weird. It was a weird gun.
It was a cool gun,
semi-automatic rifle
but it
that maxed
sucked
out at 631 rounds per minute. You weren't guaranteed a 2-shot kill like most other semi-autos. Plus,
And had a really
with
cool
8
reload.
rounds, there was no way to increase it, which you could get in trouble with. I guess it was better than the MK14, but that's not saying
Just barely.
much. It was pretty low tier in the grand scheme of things, and a lever action rifle in Advanced Warfare. I don't really understand it, but
The sight
it
sucks.
is what it is.
The sights are horrible.
At number 118 today, the Modern Warfare 2 F2000. I love dumping on this gun because there's a handful of people ready to jump and defend it every time.
I didn't mind it, but it
Probably
wasn't my
gonna be
favorite.
Pretty salty when you see where it ranked. It was a very low damage assault rifle. It killed in 4 to 5 bullets most of the time. Fired at 900 rounds per minute. It was the fastest in the game. That's cool, but the recoil was dumb. The iron sights, they were terrible. You'd have plenty of time to think about that during all the reloading.
In
you had
comparison
do
to the
despite
other
its
guns in Modern
problems.
Warfare 2, yeah.
Yes, a lot of people insist the F2000 is underrated. Am I one of those people? No.
Did not even
That's
hit
why
alt.
it's down here. The gun
I honestly feel like if the F2000 was ported from Modern Warfare 2 into 3, it would have done better in 3. Modern Warfare 2 had just so many good guns with so many clean iron sights and like no recoil at all. This gun should not have been in Modern Warfare 2.
was no good. At number 117 today, the Black
That was
Ops
better.
2 SMR, a gun that I truly do not understand. Semi-auto rifle, consistent 2-shot kill, but low fire rate cap that gave it a worse time to kill than the FAL. I mean, the FAL had a better fire rate cap, 2-shot kill, handling was identical to the SMR. So here's the important question. What reason was there to use the SMR when you could just use the FAL? There wasn't.
Wasn't.
It was pointless. At number 116 today, the Advanced Warfare AK-47.
Yeah, no, this was not a good
may be
AK.
the worst AK in COD history. You let me know. It's possible.
Really bouncy
Killed in 3
recoil.
shots up close, 4 at range, but fires at an abysmal 615 rounds per minute, which gave it one of the worst times to kill of any automatic in the game. The recoil was so...
The AK in Advanced Warfare was like I had 2 or 3 variants of this thing, and I tried every single variant I had. I could never get the hang of it. It's really slow firing. I think this is one of the slowest firing AKs we've had in COD history, minus maybe the KVK from Black Ops 3. But the recoil on this thing was stupid bouncy. You pretty much always had to run a grip on this thing. At least I did, and it had really garbage range if I remember right as well. But it had some really cool variants. But other than that, this thing was not that good. Yeah.
high in this one. It was. The range dropped off into the 20s. It just wasn't a good choice, and it wasn't a good representation of the AK, which is a legendary Call of Duty gun. At number 115, I can't wait to see people get upset
this
about
gun.
this one as well. The Modern Warfare 3 Fad. Now, I know some of you love the gun. I didn't. It really wasn't that good. It was
I don't
a
get why people
final
love this gun.
Unlock, which is just not worth the grind. Yes, it fired at 1,000 rounds per minute, but it
Excuse
also
you?
needed a minimum of 4 shots to kill, and that recoil, well, it was not forgiving.
Wait.
Plus,
Wait. The Fad fired at 1,000 rounds. Wait, this is Modern Warfare 3. Yeah, this is Modern Warfare. Okay, I was gonna say the Ghost version did not fire at 1,000 rounds. Yeah, no, it took me a second to realize it was Modern Warfare 3. But yeah, no, both Fads are horrible. Didn't like the one in Modern Warfare 3, and the one in Ghost was equal. It was even worse in my opinion. Slower fire rate, garbage sound, garbage sights. The thing just looks ugly. It looks like if the WA 2000 had a frickin' baby with some other space gun. I don't know.
Magazine was only 30 rounds, and the reload time was 3.5 seconds. So if you weren't running sleight of hand, you were in trouble. It was like the F2000 for Modern Warfare 2. A late unlock, it was fast, but it was weak, and people always insisted that it was better than it actually was.
I can never use this thing.
At number 114 today, the Infinite Warfare Type 2. The assault
I didn't
rifle
mind
that
this
could be
thing.
split in half and used in akimbo. That's awesome. Cool idea in practice, but, well, cool idea, but in practice, it didn't really have a place. In assault rifle mode, It was weak. It was bouncy. And then akimbo mode, you were obviously limited to close quarters only. It was, I mean, it was cool. It was a close range assault
It was cool,
rifle,
but it wasn't that good.
It just, I don't know. It wasn't better than using another SMG or a shotgun. It was a cool idea for a gun, but ultimately kind of pointless.
Close range, I'll take my Karma 45, and at pretty much any other range, I'll take a R3K in Infinite Warfare.
Number 113, the Infinite Warfare G.
I forgot this thing existed.
Now, this looked like something out of Doom as opposed to Call of Duty. I mean, so
it looked really
good?
Cool.
Not really. It depends on who you ask. If you charged it up, you...
I think this thing was the gun you could charge up for like a one-shot kill, I think he's about to say that.
Could one-shot people from any distance, but that also required you to not shoot for a few seconds, which was a questionable decision. If you decided to spray it in semi-auto, it would kill in 2 to 3 shots.
Wait, semi-auto?
Good, but the handling was closer to an LMG than an assault rifle. There's a few tweaks that could have been made to the G-Rail and make it a top-tier weapon, but for now, here it is.
I never had this thing.
At number 112 today.
I love this gun.
The Modern Warfare 3 M4 A1. This is possibly the worst M4 in COD history, which is saying a lot. It was heavily nerfed from Modern Warfare 2, which in itself had been nerfed from COD 4. The Modern Warfare 3 version was bouncy, it was weak, it was unreliable, and you would put it down for the second you unlocked it for something else.
No, I use it all the time,
actually. It
actually.
was clearly meant to be a starter weapon, which I get. You hardly ever see somebody beyond level 10 with it. It was way too unreliable, especially compared to other rifles.
You saw my Prestige for level 30 or 47 with it. You saw me using it all the time. This was one of my, if not my most used gun in Modern Warfare 3. The only gun that I can think of that would come close to this is the ACR. I love this thing.
At number 111.
Yeah, I hated this thing.
The Ghost SC 2010. I've said it before. This is the most forgettable weapon in Ghost, and I agree with that. Do you remember it?
I think it's technically a
foul.
foul.
750 rounds per minute. Killed in 3 to 5 shots. Didn't have any recoil. It was accurate.
Yeah.
You threw the grip attachment on there, the recoil was gone. So why wasn't it used more? Why wasn't it more memorable?
Low damage.
Well, in a game like Ghost, the SC, well, it was weak. It killed in 3 to 5 shots, yes, but the fire rate was a lot lower than more popular Ghost guns, which brought the time to kill down a little below average. It wasn't bad. You could get work done. It just wasn't as strong or melty as the other go-to guns in Ghost. At number 110, the Modern Warfare 3
this one was not good.
AK-47. Now, the AK was nerfed hard from MW1 and 2. It was viable, I guess, but it wasn't popular. It just didn't feel consistent.
Not even the AK in Modern Warfare 2 was that good. I didn't like the AK in Modern Warfare 2 either. And I think, technically speaking, this is the same model they used for Advanced Warfare, if not a little bit, like, bulged up. I think, at least. It looks really, really similar to the Advanced Warfare version of it. It's not
consistent anymore. Aside from the low fire rate and the high recoil, the
but yeah,
AK's
this thing was
two-shot
trash.
potential was heavily neutered. Most of the time, you were killing in 4 bullets, and that's kind of sacrilegious for an AK-47. It was just way too slow to keep up with other guns in MW3, and it looked cool. It just wasn't really good. At number 109, the Ghost MSBS. This gun fell victim to one of the fastest and heaviest nerfs in COD history. On launch day, the MSBS was game-breaking. It was one of the most powerful guns in COD history. It was. I mean, it was the COD 4 M16, but with more attachments and perks. It was too good. But we're talking about the current version of the guns on the list, and it was nerfed, and you pretty much never saw it again. It was pretty powerful, and the damage was consistent, but the handling was so bad. It was bouncy, slow. The reload was longer than you would want. It had a hefty, fast fall from grace, and if you weren't playing Ghost during the launch week, you probably never experienced it. At number 108 today, the Black Ops 2 Type 25. It's a weird one to talk about. Very fast
I like
firing,
this thing,
had a
personally.
fan club, but if you compare it to the Type 25 and when you compare it to other guns in Black Ops 2, it's easy to see why it was the least used. It wasn't bad. It was just hard to control, and once you got to mid-range where assault rifles are supposed to shine, you were getting hit markers everywhere. I know, some people really like the Type for its close-range stopping power, but the lack of versatility is why it's at number 108. At 107 today, the Modern Warfare 2019 AN-94. As you probably know, the AN-94 shoots the first few rounds faster, and then the rest, if you hit your shots with that burst.
In burst fire, this thing's actually really good, but in fully auto fire, this thing was not that good. Burst fire is like 1,000 something rounds or a minute, I think, and then it goes to like to 600, 700 somewhere in there, I think, for the rest of the mag. Or like how it works is like every time you pull the trigger, it shoots the first 2 rounds faster. I think, at least that's how I remember working. So if you could just like burst it, like burst fire and semi-auto, like with the trigger finger, it wasn't that bad. But if you had to fully auto it, oh my god, this thing was disappointing. A really cool gun, crappy iron sights, but really cool gun. Just did not live up to the hype.
Its time to kill is insane. However, if you don't land those first shots in the burst. Instead, it deals normal damage, and it's a full auto version, which wasn't very good. The damage per shot was low. In order for you to get the most out of this gun, you have to hit those faster bullets first. I think mid-tier is a decent place for it. And yes, we are already in mid-tier category because when you get down to it, there aren't really a ton of bad assault rifles in COD. We got the bad ones out of the way, so everything moving forward is viable in one way or another. Just keep that in mind. At number 106 today,
I hate this thing.
Black Ops 3 LV8 Basilisk. Now, a while back, I said this was the first assault rifle in BO3. I'm sticking with it. It has the highest fire rate of any rifle in the game. It kills in 4 to 5 shots, which sounds great, but the weird quirk of the gun was the fact that it had to be charged up. When you pulled the trigger, about a third of a second would go by before the bullets actually started flying out.
And that's the exact reason why, too.
Which meant it was literally impossible to tap fire or effectively rush with it, since you couldn't react as fast as you could with other guns. Now, the damage per second was insane, but the fire delay, it killed it. At number 105.
I love the Arcs.
The Cod Ghost Sa-805 160. This is a very fast-firing assault rifle with a bit of a low damage profile. It could deal as little as 17 damage per shot, which that's kind of embarrassing for an AR. But the fire rate made up for it. If you
That's almost worse than some of the SMGs in COD history. I think it actually is worse than like any SMG in COD history, except for like extremely low damage ones. Wow, that I did not know that. Although I do love the Arcs in pretty much any game it's been in.
Kept
I don't know
close
why.
quarters, that time to kill was decent. The recoil was heavy, but for some reason the first few shots had super low recoil, which encouraged tap firing and burst firing. It was just a bit of a weird weapon, all things considered. At number 104 today,
I could never use this thing.
Cod MP44. Do you even remember this gun? A lot of people hate the gun, and I agree it was pointless, but
I could never use this
have a
thing,
soft
like, at
spot
all.
for it. It was a throwback gun, basically a worse version of the AK, and you couldn't put attachments on it. But the power of it was actually pretty impressive for the time, and the handling was better than you would expect. It was
The
a very
sight
mixed
sucked.
bag. It was. So I think this is an appropriate spot, all things considered. I don't think
The two things that kill this thing for me are with the sights and with the recoil. This thing kicks so freaking hard, and then the sights don't help that at all whatsoever. It was a really cool gun. It sounded really cool and had a really cool reload animation, but other than that, this thing was the sights and the recoil killed this thing in my opinion.
it was bad. I don't think it was as bad as some people say it was, but it definitely wasn't good. At number 103, the Black Ops
I love the
1
Black Ops
FN
FAL.
FAL. Did
Love that
anybody
thing.
actually ever use this?
I did.
I don't think I remember seeing it outside of gun game.
I loved it.
A rifle killing 2 bullets, but that wasn't guaranteed, and it kicked. It looked and sounded awesome, but the recoil pattern was frustrating to deal with, especially when the M14, which we'll talk about later, was also a 2-shot kill with much easier recoil to control. The Black Ops 1 FAL wasn't a bad gun on its own, but compared to the rest of the BO1 sandbox, it was lower tier. At number 102 today, the Modern Warfare 2 M4 A1. I've said it before that it was underwhelming, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It was the definition of a starter
I didn't mind it, but it
weapon,
wasn't my
which I
favorite.
understand. Simple, effective, easy to use, but outclassed by the guns you would unlock later in the game. That's how it's supposed to be. Yes, it fired quickly. It had a decent time to kill, but once you got
those
some
hit
other rifles
markers.
unlocked, you probably set it and forget it.
Pretty much okay, so for those of you who don't know, my first game on Modern Warfare 2, I got into a hacked lobby, and I pretty much got the ACR first game on. I don't think I actually ever touched this thing until after I think it was after I prestiged the first time. I prestiged it, and I didn't realize I was going to lose all my guns, and then I used the M4 for however many levels it was until I got my ACR back. I don't hate the M4 in Modern Warfare 2, just in comparison to all the other guns in that game, like AR-wise. Just, it can't compare to them.
And
Especially with the
final
ACR being in
gun
the game.
today, at number 101, Modern Warfare 2019's AK-47.
I love this thing.
I remember when Modern Warfare gameplay was first shown off, and we thought the AK was going to be the meta pick. It was a decent gun, but nowhere near as good as we thought it would, and probably not as good as it should have been.
If you kit it right, then the AK in Modern Warfare 2019 is still pretty powerful.
This Modern Warfare AK had too much recoil, and the handling, it was just way too frustrating for a
Yeah,
gun
no,
to
this
shoot
thing
so
handled
slow.
really slow.
Yes, the damage was fantastic, but everything around that damage was rough. And there you have
The Modern Warfare 2019 AK had really insanely good damage for an AR. I think it 3-shot it most of the time, but yeah, the handling, the ADS speed on it was what killed it, honestly. It handled really slow and just did not have exactly the amount of customization that you would think it would have. Although those 545 mags, those were amazing. Loved them. And I also have a really cool version. I think it's called the War, so it's a blacked out AK. So nice. I think it's technically speaking an AK-10 something, but it's so clean. I think I've used it on stream before, but as well. Okay, let's go on to part 2.
Welcome everybody, welcome back to the ranking series, and we are doing the biggest ranking.
I just realized something. We didn't see any Cold War arrows on that list. I just now realized that.
I guess you could call it mini-series on the channel. We are attempting to rank all 127 assault rifles in COD history, from the worst to the best.
Is there a link for the second part?
It will be in the description. This is part 2, and there will probably be a part 3 and a part 4 because there's almost 130 guns. If you guys are enjoying.
I don't see a I don't see a part 3. Where is the part 3? Oh, there it is. Found it.
Drop a like. Make sure you're following the page. At number 100. Yes, that's where we left off.
I hate the Shiva. One of my, actually no, probably my least favorite gun in Black Ops 3. Next to the Dragoon. The Dragoon was just horrible. That was a disgrace to Mosin Nagants. But no, I hated the Shiva.
Last time.
Could not stand this thing at all.
Black Ops 3 Shiva. Now, I believe this is the slowest semi-auto rifle in COD history, but it has a decent fan club because of the insane damage potential. It had a pathetic fire rate cap of 257 rounds per minute, but it was almost always a two-shot kill.
I hated this thing.
If you were running high caliber back in Black Ops 3, it could actually be a one-shot kill to the head. I know that sounds crazy, but you have to remember, this was a jetpack game, and that fire rate was embarrassingly low for a
I only ever used the Shiva so I could get diamond ARs, and I literally never picked it ever again after that. I hated the Shiva so much. For most of the ARs in Black Ops 3, I actually created a like a custom variant, at least one in the gunsmith. It didn't do that for the Shiva.
My auto weapon, and I know some of you like this gun. I know some of you are going to argue and say this was a
I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I'm going to put it lower than that.
The consistency required to use this gun reliably, it was just way too much for the average player. At number 99, the Black Ops 4
I love this thing.
XKG. Now, of all the assault rifles in Black Ops 4, I think this is the one I have the least to say about. It had very low recoil, pretty high fire rate, but it also had super low damage to balance it out. In a game that had a longer time to kill like BO4, I just feel like the Vapor was in a weird spot. A lot of people like the fire rate and handling, but the damage was too low to make it a popular pick, like the ICR and other laser beam weapons.
If you put a long barrel and rapid fire in this thing, it turned it into a melt machine on like longer range maps. I actually really didn't like Black Ops 4 as a game, but the weapons they had in it were actually pretty dang good, including the Vapor.
In that game, it was kind of just sitting there in the creative class menu, which is why it's just sitting here at number 99. Guys, if you get anything from Scuff, your dream controller, accessories, merch, anything, consider using
Type 95, isn't it?
At number 98, the Modern Warfare 3 Type 95.
Never liked this thing.
It was overpowered, but after it was nerfed, you hardly ever saw it online. And we are doing current form of all these guns, not launch, okay? This 3-round burst rifle had 2-shot kill potential for a pretty impressive distance, but once you backed up to 25 meters,
never liked it.
It struggled. The damage was good, but the recoil, it was high, and the hip fire spread was unforgiving, so you really had to be precise. On its own, the Type 95 was decent, but you barely saw it online due to the inability to keep up with the God tier automatics in Modern Warfare 3. At number 97.
I love this thing.
The Cod Ghost Maverick.
The Maverick was probably
Who actually remembers this DLC rifle? Probably not a lot of you.
This was one of the guns I bought for Ghosts, just like separately, for like $5, I think, bucks. 2 or 3. It was somewhere between $2 and $5 I bought this thing for. I use this thing all the time. The Maverick was one of my favorite guns in the game. I loved this thing. Really clean sights too.
It was just forgettable. It dealt 50 base damage, which is impressive.
Yeah.
But that dropped all the way down to 24. So you were definitely supposed to use the Maverick at close range. But even then, it was kind of a weird pick because the fire rate was only 650 rounds per minute. It was a weird gun.
It hit really, really hard at close range.
The fire rate was so low that using
I remember
it at
this
close
thing.
range wasn't really smart. I mean, I feel 97's a fair spot. At number 96, the Black Ops 4 SWAT Arc.
I don't like this gun.
This was the first DLC rifle in Black Ops 4, and yes, it was viable, but it was underwhelming.
This thing was a laser beam, but it had like no damage on it. And, you know, Black Ops 4, you had 150 HP. You kind of need guns that, you know, have some at least punch to them. This gun didn't have said punch. Again, laser beam with some pretty good fire rate on it, but I just didn't like this thing at all. I have this on my account, and I've used it probably 3 or 4 times.
It was easy to control, the fire rate was solid, but the damage left something to be desired. If you wanted an accurate low damage weapon, here, take the ICR, right? It was the more practical.
The closest comparison I can make to the Swat Arc from like any past game that I played from them, this is the M27 if the M27 had a little bit less damage.
Choice in every way. The SWAT was perfectly usable, but when compared to the other guns at your disposal in the game,
this was literally like a modern M27 with slightly less damage.
Number 95, the Black Ops Cold War QBZ-83, an extremely mobile assault
I
rifle.
don't like this thing at all.
It wasn't very good, but the mobility, whew, that's what made it shine. You could move around easily with the QBZ, and even though that damage was low, the versatility made it a good support weapon.
This is one of the reasons I struggled to get diamond on ARs in Cold War. This and the FAMAS long shots. Jesus Christ, I'm never using the QBZ again. I hate this thing so much. Pretty much any other game it's going to be in, not going to use it. I despise this gun.
Getting a lot more popular if it just gets a tiny buff to that damage.
No.
It could definitely move into the meta. At number 94 today, the Infinite Warfare RVN.
I forgot this existed.
This was a 2-round burst rifle that could be split in half and used as a melee weapon, which was an odd trait, but it was fun to goof around with. The damage was decent, the melee was always a one-hit kill, which is cool, and a lot of COD players had a soft spot for 2-round burst weapons for some reason. I don't know why.
I didn't. I hated this thing.
It was a good
gun. I forgot it existed, but I do actually have this, I'm pretty sure.
And you probably forgot it even existed. At number 93 today, the Modern Warfare 2019
of course, the anime variant.
Kilo 141. Now, the Kilo is super popular in Warzone, but you don't see a whole lot of it in standard multiplayer because it's not the best, and we're doing multiplayer, not Warzone. The fire rate was decent, damage was decent, but it was outclassed.
I actually really like the Kilo. I have I'm a Honey Badger build of it, and I have a Modern Warfare 2 ACR build of it, and I freaking love this thing. If you put no barrel on it, the stipple tape, the collapsible stock or whatever it's called, and then put a holographic on it, this thing low-key shreds, not gonna lie.
Plus, the Kilo shot
I love this gun.
long-range fights in Warzone, but in 6v6 multiplayer, you don't have those options for the bigger fight. It's a good gun, but not nearly as good as its Warzone counterpart. At number 92, the Black Ops 2 SWAT 556. Do not come and argue in the comments that I put this too low. 3-round burst, very consistent, very powerful, but it kind of became the laughing stock in the Black Ops 2 community because it was nowhere close to the power of the M8A1.
Yeah.
There is a bit of a community for the SWAT, I know, because it's accurate and has good consistency, but when you put it next to other guns,
the M8 destroyed this thing, and this thing had too long of a burst delay, in my opinion.
It just can't keep up. At number 91, the Advanced Warfare STG-44.
This thing was good.
Now, like most STGs, the AW version is a very high damage weapon, but you'll have to deal some very high recoil to compensate. It was really good.
I will never understand what it is. I will never understand what it is with Call of Duty and putting stupid hard recoil on STGs. We'll never understand it. Really cool gun does not deserve that recoil.
It was pretty decent, but if you took a step back, it wasn't going to get you very far. I think this is fair. At number 90, the COD World War II AS-44. The gun,
I forgot this existed.
That looked very similar to the AK-47, and in practice, it functioned mostly the same as well. It killed in 3 to 5 shots while firing relatively slow, but it kicked a decent amount too. In the context of COD World War II, it was a decent gun. It was viable, although it wasn't going to make you ride home to your mom about it. Not a whole lot to say, just another mid-tier assault rifle. I mean,
I used this thing from only with a Wanderlust, and from what I've used of it, it's not the worst, but it could be better. Actually, no, I think I have this on my account. I'm pretty sure I actually have a variant of this on my account, and I still don't use it that much.
I know this may be kind of a boring part of the video, but there's a lot of guns to get through. Don't worry, we're going to get to the really good stuff in the near future. At number 89, the Cod Ghost Sa-805.
I wouldn't put it this high up.
It was way better in Ghost than MW3, but it still wasn't anything stellar.
Okay.
Fired at 882 rounds per minute this time around, but at least in a game like this, it could kill in 3 bullets up to 20 meters. It actually had a worse 3-shot kill range of all the rifles in Ghost, but it wasn't quite as weak as some of the others. Some people like the FAD. I see the appeal. I mean, in summary,
I didn't like
the
this
Ghost
thing.
FAD was a lot better than Modern Warfare 3's version, but that's not saying a whole lot in the grand scheme of assault rifles in Call of Duty. At number 88, the Modern Warfare 2019 FN Scar 17.
I still want a 5.56 conversion for the Scar in Modern Warfare. We got cheated on that part. I love the Scar in Modern Warfare. It's probably one of my favorite guns in the game. The Scar, I don't know why, but any game the Scar is in, I love it. I don't know why. It just looks so cool and looks cool, has a really cool firing sound. I love the iron sights, and it hits really freaking hard in pretty much any game it's in. I love this thing.
A lot of people sleep on this gun in multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
Fire rate is low and the recoil is heavy, but if you hit your shots, it is a melt machine.
It hits like a freaking freight train.
You need a few bullets to connect in order to drop your target, and the range is way better than you actually think, which allows you a ton of extra options on bigger maps. Now, I do think the SCAR needs a hefty buff in Warzone, where it's almost completely unviable, but in multiplayer, it's not bad. At number 87, the Black Ops 3 XR2. Now, it was underrated. It was, if you look at the stats.
The closest thing that the XR2 reminds me of is like an AUG, if it had a little less power on it, which I know might not make a whole lot of sense, but that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of an AUG without the scope and with a little less power on it. But I didn't mind the XR2.
It's probably mid-tier. 3-round burst, had 2-shot kill potential with high caliber, and that sounds good. But the problem is if you were hitting anywhere other than the upper body, it was getting you in trouble. Even at close range, the XR2 could get you 3 hit markers without killing the target, which is
really
that's frustrating. Yes, if you're aiming high and hitting the upper body, it's a melt machine, but it took a lot of work to be super consistent with, and while that did take some extra skill, it was harder to use than other guns, so I docked it a few points. At number 86, the Modern Warfare 3 CM901. Now, I feel like I bring this gun up at least once a month, and whenever I do, people always reminisce with me about how underrated it was.
I loved this thing. I still wish you could use this campaign on Modern Warfare 3. CM901 was probably one of my favorite guns in the game, honestly. This, the M4, and ACR are my 3 favorite ARs in Modern Warfare 3. I loved this thing. I forgot this existed, but now that I'm remembering what it is, God, I love this thing.
Very high damage assault rifle, killed with 2 to 4 bullets, which made it one of the only automatic weapons in Modern Warfare 3 that could 2-tag people, right? Fire rate, slow, recoil, high. Damage was nice, but I have to put it lower because, like I said, the recoil was hard to manage. And if we're being honest with each other, I love the gun, but it's just not going to be. If
you put a red dot on this thing and a suppressor, then this thing was a freaking melt machine. I loved this gun. I wish it would make a comeback sometime soon with Call of Duty or Battlefield even.
A top tier gun. At number 85 today. The Infinite Warfare R3.
There's my gun.
A 3-round burst
There's my R3K
rifle that did have a good theoretical time to kill in practice.
Loved this thing.
But yeah. Burst was fast, but the burst delay is what got you in trouble. The handling speeds were nothing to write home about. Yes, there was a handful of variants that people liked with the R3K, but in a jetpack game, a burst weapon that handled and fired this slowly, like I said, it's going to get you in trouble, especially when the target was probably just going to turn around and spray you with the M4.
I think this is the R3KT variant. That one's fully auto.
The COD World War II automaton. I don't know.
I hated the Fedorov in this game. This is a Fedorov Aftermath. I hated this thing so much. Horrible sights. I hated the firing sound. Pretty much no damage. At least it didn't feel like it had damage to me. But I hated the automaton. God, that was one. And keep in mind, I had just come off of using the Fedorov Aftermath from Battlefield 1. This thing was like a complete downgrade from that. God, I hated this thing.
Rifle that thrived at mid to long range. It was consistent 3 to 4 shot kill, manageable recoil. Fire rate kind of low, 472 rounds per minute. I mean, rushing probably wasn't smart, but if you stayed back and wanted to bully your enemies at range, it would get the job done. Yeah, let's move on. Number 83. The Black Ops 3 Galil. I love the Galil because of Black Ops 1 and the Black Ops 3
I forgot that was in Black Ops 3.
It's decent. Nothing special, but decent. It killed in 4 to 6 shots most of the time. It fired at an even 750 rounds per minute, the exact same as its Black Ops 1 counterpart. It's mid-tier in the context of Black Ops 3, and I think mid-tier overall is a good COD assault rifle. At number 82, the Black Ops 4 Grav.
I love the Grav.
This was the VO4 version of the Galil, which you probably know is one of my favorite guns in COD history because I just told you. This version fired noticeably slower than the other Galils, but the damage, it was good. It killed in 4 shots up close and 6 at range. The handling, it was pretty good. Movement, pretty good. It was a good weapon all around. Nowhere near as good as the Black Ops 4.
The Galil on Black Ops 4 is one of my favorite ARs.
If I would put any higher, you would have said I was showing favorites. At number 81, the Black Ops 3 HVK 30.
Again, one of my favorite guns.
High rate of fire, accurate, tight hip fire spread. Kind of low damage. That's all you really need, though. Even with the lower damage, it could still kill with full bullets from an impressive distance, which made it a good choice for rushing people and sticking close to mid-range. It wasn't as popular as other rifles in BO3, but it was viable. I got a lot of hours in with this. I felt really comfortable with this gun. I don't know why, but I did. At number 80, the Advanced Warfare
The RIP, dude. Oh my god, I forgot about this thing. The RIP AK-12 in Advanced Warfare was one of my biggest annoyances in the game, and I still don't have that variant to this day.
AK-12. This one too. Despite it sharing a name with the gun and Ghost, it behaved differently. Instead of being a slow-firing but hard-hitting rifle, The AW version fired at 750 rounds per minute and killed in 4 to 5 shots. Now this sounds mediocre, but the benefit of the lower damage was the practically non-existent recoil. It was one of the most accurate guns in the game, which that's super beneficial in a game like Advanced Warfare where you have to account for a lot of vertical movement and your target changing directions on you. It wasn't amazing. I think the Ghost version's better, but the Advanced Warfare AK-12 was a solid gun. I would call it upper mid tier. At number 79, the Black Ops 4
Never had this thing.
Dual Bore. Cool weapon.
This thing looked like a Scar 17 if it had 2 barrels on it.
Double barrel assault rifle that allowed for a lot of ammo at once. By default, it carried 44 rounds, and with extended mags 1 and 2, you could have up to 74 rounds locked and loaded. I mean, the damage was pretty solid. It made it pretty cool for pressure and group fights. Time to kill, it wasn't a lead or anything, but it was at, like I said, group fights, this thing was cool. At number 78, the Modern Warfare 2019 FAL. Now, when Modern Warfare launched, the FAL was hot garbage, but after a series of buffs, it's okay. Still a semi-auto gun in a game dominated by fast full autos.
At launch, this thing was absolutely atrocious. I hated this thing at launch.
But the FAL's damage potential
Still not a huge fan of it, but I guess it's usable now.
Mid-range, it is insane. And actually, out of all the guns, even the SMGs, it kills really fast. At range, it struggles due to the recoil and the ballistics, but at mid-range and closer,
I refuse to use this thing
it's
still.
a monster. At number 77 today, the Modern Warfare 2 M16 A4.
I was never a fan of this one.
From Cod 4 into Modern Warfare 2 pretty faithfully, so you know what you're getting. I mean, it was just outclassed this time by other guns. To be fair, Modern Warfare 2 was packed with ridiculous full auto weapons, and there was even a superior burst rifle we'll talk about later. I mean, it was a good gun. Great time to kill. But when you put it next to everything else in that game, it's mid-tier in the grand scheme of things.
Was never the biggest fan of it. I don't know why, but I didn't like the Cod 4 M16 A4 or the Modern Warfare 2 M16 A4. It wasn't until Modern Warfare... It was in... Wow, okay. It wasn't until Modern Warfare Remastered that I liked the M16 A4.
Keeping up with the rest of the sandbox of Modern Warfare 2.
I probably loved the M16 A4 from Cod 4, but...
The Black Ops Cold War Graza.
I hate this thing.
Graza. Excellent assault rifle. Super mobile, solid time to kill. Yes, there are other assault rifles in Cold War that get the job done better. It's not going to blow your socks off, but it was good. Very safe choice is what I like to call this one for almost every single map. I think number 76 is a fair spot, and that is where we stop today, my friends. Let me know. Did you...
All right, move on to part 3. Should be part 4 somewhere over here, wouldn't it be? I guess. Maybe not. Where's part 4? Guess it's not on here. Whatever.
Where we went from top 10s to top 130s, but here we are. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for support on the first 2 parts of ranking every single assault rifle in COD history. There are 127 of them. If you want to check out part 1 and 2, go for it. Today, we are going to go from 75 down to 50. That's right. You guys let me know what you think in the comments section. And guess what? G Fuel, Code Chaos, 30% off. They are launching new flavors left and right. Everything on the website, 30% off. Send me a picture if you take advantage. Link is at the top of the description. At number 75. What an insane list.
I honestly never had this thing.
The Black Ops 3 MX Garand. It was interesting. It was a futuristic version of the iconic M16.
Wish I had it, but I never had it.
In a game like BO3, the results were a little bit of a mixed bag. It killed in 2 shots most of the time, and the fire rate was pretty high. However, you couldn't reload it mid-clip, so
you couldn't?
If you had 2 shots in the clip, you would either have to roll the dice on your next fight or just fire those 2 shots into a wall so you could reload and give your position away and hear that fantastic ping.
The ping was amazing.
It had fantastic damage potential.
If you have a game with an M1 Garand in it, it's pretty much like you need to add the ping, and if you don't, then you don't have a game.
But the ammo situation in Black Ops 3, it wasn't the best. And also, guys, how have we done so far? It's not easy to rank this many guns. How do you think we've done so far on the first 2 parts? At number 74, the Modern Warfare 3 Scar L. Now,
loved this thing.
I think this is one of the most underrated scars in COD history. It had great fire rate, solid damage, very easy recoil to control, and a big 30-round mag.
And those sights were beautiful.
Most cars only had 20. At any range short of 25 meters, the Scar would kill in 3 bullets. And those iron sights were as clean as they get. It was super underrated, and I think it deserves this spot. It actually probably could have been a little higher now that I'm looking at it, but we'll go with it. Remember, that doesn't necessarily mean these are bad right here. There's just a lot of weapons. At number 73, the Black Ops 2 MTAR.
Was never a fan of the MTAR.
This was your starting rifle in Black Ops 2, and it was a very popular choice for myself included, even after people unlocked other guns. It was a little bouncy, but it had a great time to kill. It had really good iron sights and a very, very fast reload. It was a great gun for leveling up, and even after you got more stuff on your account, you would often find yourself going back to it because it was actually really fun to use, and it was a pretty solid rifle.
Was never a fan of the MTAR.
Today, the Black Ops 1 M14. Now, if you're someone who likes semi-auto guns, you probably use the M14 a lot. The Black Ops 1 was one of the best in COD history thanks to that easy recoil pattern and the really, really high damage. It was almost always a 2-shot kill, and since the fire rate cap was high and the recoil was easy to manage, it was versatile. Just pop somebody twice, and they're down. At number 71 today, the Black Ops 4 KN57. Now, I've always thought this gun sounded like a bunch of farts, but okay, it was pretty good. Well-rounded rifle, fitted out any role you needed.
Was not expecting that one, but I do like the KN57.
It still had a pretty good time to kill in most situations. I really can't be the only one, though, who thought that firing sound was weird. I don't know why I'm stuck on that.
It was a really weird firing sound, but the KN57 is probably one of my favorite AKs in COD history. I love this thing.
I'm sorry, but yeah, let's move on.
I think I have gold on this thing.
How many of you remember the COD 4
Oh my god.
G36C? It was a mixed bag. It was stronger than the M4, but it was also a little harder to control, all while firing at around the same rate. So, did you want a little more...
If you slapped a reflex on this thing, it was so good.
Damage with a little more recoil? It's up to you. It had a fan club in COD 4, but it wasn't really my thing. I know some people figured out the secret sauce to make it God tier, and I should point out that it had a ton of potential, but actually taking advantage of that potential...
The sights were really what I didn't like about it.
At number 69, kind of pains me to put it this low, but here it is. The Advanced Warfare Hbr A3. Now, most slow-firing weapons struggled during the jetpack era.
The insanity
COD,
was...
This one was popular.
Just abhorrently overpowered. Still have yet to pull the insanity out of a supply drop, by the way.
Fired at 625 rounds per minute, but the first 4 rounds came out at 857, so you could actually master the timing and tap fire. You could melt people. Now, the damage was moderate. It killed in 3 shots up close and 5 at long range, and in a game as fast-paced as AW, a more slow-firing gun like this should have been forgotten, but it was one of the most used
It hits
guns.
so freaking hard, though.
Started on the Insanity variant. Woo! At number 68 today, the Black Ops 3...
If y'all watched any of my Black Ops 3 streams, y'all know that the Man of War is one of my favorite guns, if not my favorite gun in the game. I freaking love this thing. I had 2 Firebrand variants because I had the camo for it. I love this thing. It's probably... I'd have to say it is my favorite AR in Black Ops 3. When I went back and played Black Ops 3 about 2 or 3 months ago, I still use this thing as my only gun. This is like the only thing I can actually use on Black Ops 3. I freaking love this gun to death.
Man of War. This was one of my favorite guns in the game. Sounded beefy, had the damage stats to back it up.
This was like a futuristic
Scar. Over 500 rounds per minute, but it had some of the best bullet damage in the entire game. It killed in 3 shots in most situations.
This thing hit insanely hard. This was pretty much like a Scar H, but with 30-round mags, with cleaner sights, and in 2065 instead of Modern Warfare 2.
The handling was slow, yes, and the recoil was high, but it was a fun gun to use. I think it was more of a cool than good gun, but it was still a fan favorite. I
disagree with that. I love this thing.
At number 67 today, the Black Ops Cold War Krig 6.
I have this variant.
Every COD game needs a resident laser beam.
God, those freaking sights are horrible.
Fire, but basically Cold War's equivalent of the Kilo 141 from
Pretty
Modern
much,
Warfare. Super easy to control, excellent range. It was really good for mid to long range gunfights, and since it's super easy to control, you can make up the relatively low damage per shot if you're good at it. At number 66 today, the Infinite Warfare Eon. I bet you don't even remember this gun.
Nope.
It was interesting. It actually fired faster if you aimed down the sights, but if you hit fire, you'll be treated to this extremely tight spread at the cost of lower fire rate. Now, damage-wise, the Eon would kill in 4 to 5 shots. Pretty standard in Infinite Warfare, and the varying fire rate gave it a little bit of personality. It was popular. It was a good... I say it was popular, but I don't remember it. Maybe it wasn't. It was viable. How's that? At number 65. The Modern Warfare 2019.
That's not higher? Wait, what?
It was insane.
Yeah, this thing was awesome.
The gun had one of the best in the entire game, but That was balanced out by small magazines and atrocious ballistics. It was basically a glorified SMG, but if you treated it that way, you'll be treated to one of the best melt machines in Modern Warfare.
The AS Val is still one of my favorite arrows in Modern Warfare. If you put the shortest barrel on it, the wire stock that I can't think of the name of off the top of my head, 30-round mags and stipple tape on this thing was a monster in close range. I freaking love this gun. I'm surprised it's not higher, honestly.
I put it a little lower than you'd probably expect because it lacked versatility, but it was a really good gun for close range maps. At number 64 today, the World at War STG-44, the one and only assault rifle in World at War. It was solid. Fire rate was a little low. Recoil was a little bouncy, but the damage, whew, it was spicy. They could kill in 3 to 4.
STGs in Call of Duty have always had really bouncy recoil, though.
4 bullets from most distances with stopping power, while the recoil made it harder to use at long range.
But
it was a good
dear
gun.
God, this thing
It was one of the
shredded.
most used in World at War. I don't remember the magazine size, but I don't think it was very big.
I think it had a 30-round mag.
At number 63.
World at War.
The Black Ops 3 Peacekeeper MK2. Now, the Peacekeeper was
Still
a
have yet to pull
favorite
this thing
SMG in Black
out of a
Ops 2.
supply
For some
drop.
reason, Treyarch decided to make it an assault rifle when they brought it back.
Have it in Black Ops 4. Use it in Black Ops 4 all the time, but I don't have it in Black Ops 3. God, I really am glad we have not went back to that supply drop system. Jesus Christ, that was horrible.
BO3. Okay. It would kill
Couldn't
in 4 to 5
stand it.
shots, had the best mobility of any assault rifle in the game, and Treyarch wanted to keep the spirit of the Peacekeeper intact and make it feel like an SMG/AR hybrid, and I think they succeeded.
Oh yeah, 100%
Decent
they
fire
succeeded.
rate, decent damage.
CJ has this on his account, and he says it's one of the best guns in the game. I remember when he flipped out, he got this thing. Still have yet to pull it out of supply drop, though.
Excellent handling made the Peacekeeper MK2 a fan favorite for those who managed to pull it from a supply drop. Ouch.
Yeah.
At number 62 today, the Cod Ghost Sa-805.
I hated this thing.
I think it was underrated. It would kill in 3 to 4 shots while firing at almost 800 rounds per minute.
The sights on this were atrocious.
The handling, yes, it was a tad slow, and the time to kill wasn't the best, but in the grand scheme of
Hold
things...
up. Look at those sights. That is atrocious. It wouldn't be bad if it weren't for that stupid middle rectangle with a hole in it. God, I hate these sights so much. That's the one reason I didn't use this thing online.
It was good in a game like Ghost. It wasn't going to blow your pants off, but it was a lot better than people actually realized. You never hear about it today.
That's kind of the entire thing of Ghosts. It really didn't, like, the entire game didn't blow anyone's pants off.
So here we are, giving it some love at
That's
number
kinda its
62,
thing.
which is right at the middle point. At number 61, the Black Ops Cold War
I didn't like
A3.
this thing.
You've probably seen this gun a lot, recently at least. Very good close-range assault rifle. Struggles the more you move back, and up close, its time to kill is insane. One of the best in the game. But if you back up even just a little bit, you'll start seeing the problems. Stick to close quarters with this
I hated
one.
this
It will
thing.
treat you
Still
well,
hate it.
but if you're going to try to use it at range, probably not. At number 60, the Advanced Warfare ARX 160. Now,
I had the, what was it called? I had the Elite variant of this that had, like, the pink coral on it and the gold on it. This thing was insanely overpowered. It was the hole puncher, steel bite. That's what it was. If you had the hole puncher or the steel bite, this thing was insanely overpowered. I remember this thing. I actually had the steel bite was the first weapon I pulled on my PS4. I still remember that to this day.
unlike the
God,
Ghost
this thing was
gun of the
overpowered.
same name, this one was a 3-round burst rifle with some really good potential. It had very low recoil and a great rate of fire, although this was balanced out with the scaling damage that actually, well, it made it lose its one burst potential beyond mid-range, which that's frustrating after all. Nothing is more annoying than landing all 3 shots in
If you had the
burst,
hole
but
punch or
not
the
getting
steel bite, though, this
a
thing was
kill.
insanely powerful.
The RX had a huge 45-round mag by default, which is good for constant pressure.
That's
and despite
default?
that range drop-off,
Jesus.
people loved it. At number 59 today, the Modern Warfare 3 MK14.
My favorite
Now, correct me if
MK14.
I'm wrong, but I believe this gun is the strongest assault rifle in COD history. If we're talking about just sheer bullet damage.
If I'm not mistaken, you could if you hit every single shot on a Juggernaut as a headshot with this thing, it would drop him in 20 shots. I think, at least. And I'm pretty sure that's with no perks on the weapon, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure you could drop a Juggernaut in 20 shots with headshots with this thing in survival. Pretty sure, I think, at least.
I think so. It hit for 75 base damage.
Jesus.
If you hit somebody in the head, it was actually capable of a one-shot kill. So why is it at number 59? Well, the recoil was high, so if you weren't pacing your shots, you would get in trouble. Even if you did pace your shots, you could struggle to stay on target. The gun was fun. I think it's one of the best semi-auto rifles in COD history. But if you compare it to everything else, you just have to rank it a little lower than I'd like to. At number 58, my baby.
I love this thing.
The Black Ops 1 infield. Now, I know a lot of you hate this gun. I loved it. And if you look at the stats, it's not that bad. Here we go. It's viable, just not as good as some of the other BO1 games. It was your starting assault rifle. It fired at 750 rounds per minute, killed in 3 to 4 bullets. And when you look at the damage and the fire rate, it was exactly the same as the Galil and the Commando. But what made the infill so unpopular was the worse range and the more horizontal recoil. So sure, it was killing as fast as some of the best guns in the game, but the handling was a lot harder to get used to, which, well...
For those of you who don't know, the EM2 in Cold War, it was the precursor to the Enfield.
Made the others more popular. But all that being said, the Enfield was a good, fun gun, and if you stuck to close to mid-range, you liked it. I loved it. At number 57, the Black Ops 4 Peacekeeper. Now, if you know the Peacekeeper, you know what to expect. Pretty similar to the BO3 version in the sense that it was a rifle this time around instead of an SMG, but
I had this one. This thing melts. Absolutely destroys.
Decent damage, low recoil, but solid range and quick handling to make up for that time to kill. It's hard to find anyone in the COD community who doesn't like the Peacekeeper. At number 56 today, the Black Ops Cold War FFAR1. It used to be one of the best guns in the game, arguably number 1. But after a series of nerfs, it's been in much more of a balanced state. It's still a high-tier weapon, and that fire rate makes it super versatile, but it's not as much of a close-range juggernaut anymore due to that handling.
This thing used to melt at close range.
Once was, and remember, we go off the current build and status of the gun, not at launch. At number 55 today, the Modern Warfare 2019 GRA 556.
The Archangel barrel, monolithic suppressor, commando foregrip, 60-round mag, and tac laser. That's all I have to say.
I mean, it's a pretty solid competitor to the M4A1, but with some key differences. The M4, it was more versatile, had better close-range power. The GRA, far more consistent at long range, thanks to the extremely good ballistics and virtually non-existent recoil. You could laser people from across the map with this thing, so yes, the M4 may be better at close range. The GRA takes the cake at longer ranges while still maintaining a lot of the M4's other strengths like handling speed and ease of use. At number 54, the Black Ops 4 AN94. Now, it seems like the AN94
could never use this
will never get up to where it was in Black Ops.
I have this thing on my account. I don't like this. This version sucks as well. The only good version of the AN94 in COD history is the Black Ops 2 one. I don't like the Modern Warfare one unless I'm burst firing it. I don't like this one like at all, and I don't like the KVK that much either.
Black Ops 2. The 04 version, it's good, better than the other ones we've talked about, but the Black Ops 2 version, come on. Now this one would kill in 5 to 6 shots, although a buff later improved that to 4. Like the other AN94s, you really need to hit those first few shots because after that initial burst, the fire rate slows down to an insane degree. So, if you hit the first few shots, the time to kill is great. But if you miss those first few shots and let the fire rate slow down, you could get in some trouble. At number 53 today, the Modern Warfare 2 TAR-21. I
never used it.
The gun. It had a big fan club. It was a moderate damage assault rifle, great rate of fire, but had some nasty recoil. It actually had some of the highest recoil of any rifle in Modern Warfare 2, but that damage potential, it gravitated you toward it. It killed in 2 to 3 bullets with stopping power. It fired at over 750 rounds per minute. Plus, it had clean iron sights, so you could throw on other attachments and not worry about that optic. Yes, it was tough to control. It was a bit of an underdog pick. If you knew what you were doing, it was devastating. At number 52 today, the Advanced Warfare Imr. Now, I've made a...
This was my favorite gun in Advanced Warfare. I loved this thing. I'm pretty sure that the IMR has my highest kills in the game. I had not the boar tusk. I had the other elite variant. I can't think of what it was called off the top of my head. Thunder Strike or something like that, I think. I had like 6 variants of this thing. I loved the IMR. My favorite gun in the game.
A habit of saying this gun was underrated, and I stick
with
it.
It was.
4-round burst, extremely similar to the fan favorite.
I think it also one bursted to pretty much any range except for like extreme long range. This thing had a really, really, really good one burst range.
M8A1. The fire rate, it was good. Damage was good. Reload was quick. The movement in Advanced Warfare really... That's what held the gun back, as burst weapons were tough to use in a game with so much vertical combat, but the IMR, it was still totally capable of keeping up if you put the time into getting good with it. And the last one today, at number 51, the COD World War II.
Before we move on to the Volkssturmgewehr, on my channel, if you go back to like my first 2 streams and then like my last Advanced Warfare stream, which has been probably about 5 or 6 years at this point, the IMR is the one gun I use like 90% of the time with. Guarantee it. I freaking loved the IMR. The IMR and the BAL were the 2 most dominant arrows in that game. But yeah, the Volkssturmgewehr is really, really overpowered too.
Volkssturmgewehr. I probably butchered that. One of the first DLC rifles in the game. It was a pretty fast-firing gun. Recoil pattern people fell in love with. If you aimed at the chest, the recoil would pop you up to the head, which is perfect, like an AK-47. If you were hitting limb shots, it was a bit of a hit marker machine. But if you were hitting upper chest, it was insane, and it was a very popular pick. Hit your shots, and it would reward you. And there you go, my friends.
This thing absolutely melted insanely. Pretty much all of what he just said. I love this thing. One of my favorite guns in World War II.
3 is in the books. 2 parts left on the biggest ranking series in COD history on YouTube, I think. I don't know. Hopefully you guys are enjoying, and I'll see you soon.
Is the... And yeah, there's not a next part, I guess. Well, that's unfortunate. I agree with this comment, by the way. 100% agree with that. That's right, the IMR did print ammo. It was I think the IMR stands for something munition rifle or something around those lines. It printed it like 3D printed its own ammo. That thing freaking hit, oh my god, that thing hit like a freaking truck. But since there's no part 4 or 5, unfortunately, that is going to be the end of this video. But I'm going to keep doing these reactions. I really do actually like doing these reactions. So yeah, I'll see y'all in the next stream or video. Firebrand out.